Yeah. Yep. All right, we'll see y'all. Hey y'all, this is Dan with the Southern Paddler Channel, and today we are doing the North Alabama Canoe and Kayak, affectionately known as NACK. We're doing the NACK trip on the Flint River. NACK is just off of Highway 72, east of Huntsville on Moontown Road. They have a great trip here on the Flint River. They've been in operation for probably 12 years. I probably first did this trip, I don't know, maybe 5+ years ago, and have been back just about every year since. This is a beautiful stretch of the Flint River. It's a fun river. There's lots of places to stop and get out and enjoy. It's just a fun trip. One of the things I want to talk about today is paddling in current. So let's start with the basic principle of paddling. When you paddle, you put your blade in the water and pull it back. The water offers resistance against your blade. That's called the bite. And so with that bite, when you pull the paddle back towards you, it pulls your boat forward or pushes it forward. And so that's how you move yourself along the water. And we start with that because what you have to understand is that the faster that you're paddling, then the less additional force that you can exert, and that means you have less control. So when you're going very slow, that's when you have the most control, because a single stroke can turn you more or can change your speed more. But if I'm paddling as fast as I can or at a pretty good clip, then if I'm already going as fast as I can, it's harder to exert additional force to change the direction of the boat. So a lot of times when I'm going into current and rapids, I try not to be going too fast. I generally like to be going about the current of the water. Now, if it's a fairly shallow rapid and it looks like it's going to be a lot of rocks and a possibility of hanging up, sometimes I will get my speed up to try to have momentum to get over the rocks in case I do scrape. But for the most part, if it doesn't look like there's a chance of getting hung up, then what I'll do is I'll slow down to the current of the water, sometimes even slower, and let the current take me through, and then use my paddle strokes only to steer and to maneuver. So it's important not to be going too fast when you're going into some of these. Now, too, keep in mind that, if the water's moving fast and you're moving with it, you may be moving fast, but as long as your relative speed to the water is not too high, that's really, that differential is where you get your bite and your ability to maneuver your boat. So if the water's moving at 8-10 miles an hour and you're moving with it, then you have the same amount of bite and force you can exert on the water as if you're sitting still and the water's sitting still too. So again, it's basically, as long as your boat speed is relative to the speed of the water, the closer they are together, then the more force you can exert and the better you can maneuver and control and steer your boat. The style of your boat, and more specifically the shape of your hull, affects how it acts in the water, and especially in current and in rapids. I have a recreational boat. Recreational kayaks are known to be probably a little wider, and they're built more for stability and just going down lazy rivers and creeks and easy waters. And they can handle some small rapids, but they're more for just providing stability and letting you have a fun day on the water. And most of them will have some type of keel line that runs down the center of the boat. That helps with tracking. Tracking is how well your boat stays straight when you're not paddling, when you're still moving but not paddling. Or when you're paddling too, it's just how well that your boat stays straight. And then my boat, in addition to having a keel along the entire length of the hull, it also has, I guess, what you would call a skeg at the back. It almost looks like a rudder, except it doesn't move. Rudders move and are used for steering, but mine's fixed. It's a stationary piece of the boat that kind of extends down below the hull, and I believe that's called a skeg, and that's used for tracking as well to help keep your boat straight. However, when you get in currents and are going through rapids, if you get a little bit sideways to the current, the water will hit that and will want to turn my boat around. And so it's nice to have, and I like that feature of this boat, but it does mean that I have to really stay on top of the boat when I'm getting into some current, because it'll hit that skeg and really push on that boat harder. And so that's why I try with great diligence to keep my boat straight in current and rapids. One of the features of North Alabama Canoe and Kayak is that they have private launch and takeout points. So it's their own land that only they use. And so when they take you to the launch point, it's just their people and their customers at that place, and where you get out, it's just their patrons there that's getting out. Just about every time that I've done this trip, they always have somebody at the takeout spot helping you get your boats out. It's a little steep, but they usually have somebody there helping you. They may not today. We're in early April, and they've been open for probably about a month now. There's paddling season is not in full swing, but there are some people on the river today. This is the one and only bridge on this route. This is a public launch point right here by the bridge. I'll swing around so you can see that. You see some people coming in there. That's a public access point where people put in on the Flint River right here by the highway. Last week I did another section of the Flint, but I'll point it out on this one too, because it's the same river, just a little bit more downstream. But you have a lot of these rocky banks and shoals, great places to pull off and stop and have a picnic, or just spend some time, go swimming. This water stays pretty cool most of the year, so in the heat of summer, man, it feels good getting in this cool water. It'll really, really cool you off. Flint River is such a beautiful little river. And it's close enough to Huntsville to be convenient, but yet it's out enough to where, once we got under 72 back there, that's the last bridge, and there's a few houses scattered along, but no major thoroughfares running alongside. It's pretty quiet and peaceful and serene. Just a great river, and I love this particular stretch of it too. It's a fun trip. How's it going? Good. It's a little cool today, but it's a beautiful day. Now in that rapids back there, I saw the current pushing hard to the right where that tree was, and so that's why at the last minute I decided to try to paddle over to the left as much as I could to kind of start from that side to stay off that right outside bank. But as I was going through the rapids, it was so shallow that I hit rocks and I lost my momentum, and then I was kind of left at the mercy of the current, and so I went straight down towards that tree, but fortunately it wasn't so bad that I couldn't paddle out of it once I got down at the bottom of that little rapid section. How y'all doing?
How you doing, bud?
Doing good. Now another thing that you saw me do in the last rapid, and keep in mind, is that you don't always have to paddle or pull your stroke back to move forward. sometimes getting through rapids and current is as much about simply maintaining your position, because the water's moving pretty good. And so as long as you feel like your boat is going the way it needs to go and in the right place in the current, you don't always have to be paddling, especially if you're just trying to maneuver your boat. Sometimes you can back paddle, so which is where you start at the back and you push forward, and that turns your boat towards that side. And then another thing that I did there was simply just kind of drag my paddle on one side or the other to maintain the position that you want. And so, yeah, it's not always necessarily about pulling to turn and maneuver your boat. Use your back paddle stroke if you need to. Sometimes just drag your paddle almost as a rudder to control your position. And so, yeah, keep those strokes in mind, that they're kind of in your toolbox to use to help you get through rapids and maneuver around obstacles in the water. Huge rock wall right here, goes way on up. Maybe get out of the sun where y'all can see it a little better. When I was putting in the water at the very beginning, there was another couple that was putting in as well, and he was telling me that there's a cave up in there, and that might be at that little recess in the rocks right there, might be the cave he was talking about. I've seen people out and milling around on this bank, but I've never been out myself. Definitely looks like a cave in there. This current's pushing pretty hard to this left side, but there's also two limbs, good sized limbs down in the water. So I'm going to see if I can split those. There's a little dip in the water here. Ooh. Currents like this is where you really have to fight to keep it straight. It is really working on the back of this boat. The water comes off there and just starts swirling. It'll turn you around in a heartbeat. Now, to me, this is the trickiest part of this river. This is a sharp right-hand turn, and I've seen a lot of people get in trouble in this turn. Directly ahead of me, you'll see a pile of debris. This is one of those things that changes with every trip. I've seen entire trees, and sometimes multiple trees, jammed up against that little island, and the current goes straight to it, and that's what you don't want to get caught in. So as I enter this rapid, what you'll notice is that I'm basically just floating at the same speed of the current. And I'm just kind of reading the current and seeing where it's going, and then right here, I'll start a turn to the right. Now, I'll pause it, and you'll notice that I'm pointing perpendicular or directly across the current, directly towards the other side. What you have to remember is that even when you're paddling across current, you're still going to continue to travel downstream with the current. So I start my turn early to make sure that I have enough time to stay out of that pile of debris. So as we move it forward, you'll see that I'm paddling pretty hard across this current. Then you'll notice that I do 3 consecutive strokes on the right side. That's because as I'm going across that current, it's pushing on the back of my boat, probably because of that skeg, and wanting to turn me to the right. So I'm paddling on the right to maintain my direction straight across the current until I can paddle out of the danger. Now at this spot, you'll notice a log jam right here ahead of me, and the water goes both ways. Used to, you had to go to the left and then there was another hard right turn, but over the last year or so it's kind of opened up on the right side, and so it's a little bit easier and in just kind of a more gentler angle if you go to the right of this log jam. Now here you can see that I'm joining back with part of the main current, and I say part because directly ahead of me is an island and the river goes both ways, but you have to go to the right here for the NACK takeout spot. Also notice this tree across the water. You can get under it pretty easily, but with my camera, I had to stop and let my camera down. And knowing that I was just a minute or two from the takeout spot, I lowered it and didn't turn it back on. I hope you enjoyed going down the Flint River with me on the NACK trip today, and I hope that you get a chance to stop by and see the folks at NACK and do this trip yourself. It's a fun trip. For the Southern Paddler channel, I'm Dan, and I hope to see you on the water.